The bell of the shell clock chimed once in the silt-soft air, and every head in the market turned to watch how many bubbles leaked from its bronze throat. 14 precise pearls of oxygen spiraled upward before the aperture snapped shut. 14 bubbles, the official announcement that a new hour had begun in Penumbra, kingdom of inverted rigs, where air was coin and each puff was precious. No one spoke as the bubbles dwindled into the darkness. Merchants rearranged their wares, transparent vials of compressed breath, braided kelp cords, scale-polished tools, moving with the slow deliberation that conserved lungs. A single careless word could cost a meal, a sentence, a month of warmth. The silence was thick, but not dead. It thrummed with the endless hydraulic sighs of Penumbra's inverted scaffolding. Above, or rather below, the overturned platforms of obsolete surface rigs opened downward like iron canopies, hung with fluorescing nets and staggered terraces. Urchins darted among struts to collect stray globules of air that seeped from faulty joints, each salvaged bubble a fraction of a wage. Lyra Aquilon pushed through the throng, clutching the copper flask that dangled from her belt. All morning, the gauge on its side had hovered dangerously near empty, the needle slicing her peace of mind with every minor swing. She had spent more air than she should have, answering Master Sagan's questions in the word vault, articulating consonants with scholarly precision because the archivist required proper phonetic samples. Now, even tightening her lips felt extravagant. Every exhalation was an unreturnable coin. A silver guild security warden blocked her path to the spiral lift. He tapped his visor and held out a hand. His palm made the universal sign. Payment. Lyra surrendered her flask. The warden latched it to a wall meter. A brief hiss preceded the verdict. A red rune flared. Insufficient. Lyra mouthed a curse she dared not voice. She touched 2 fingers to her jaw, a silent plea for mercy. The warden's eyes softened. He leaned close, opened his personal flask, and let a single bubble drift into hers. A tiny, charitable coin. He accepted no thanks. No one could afford thanks. Only gestured toward the lift. She bowed, saving her breath. The lift rose, groaning, toward the uppermost ring of the capital rig. As it ascended, she studied Penumbra's inverted architecture. Ages ago, these towers drilled downward into oil fields. When the wells ran dry, the surface world abandoned them. Refugees fleeing wars topside flipped the rigs, anchored them to the seabed, and hollowed their columns, turning rust into refuge. Penumbra's founders discovered thermal vents and algae farms, enough to sustain life, but air remained scarce. The first governors decreed that oxygen would be minted, stored, traded, and taxed like gold. They installed compression cisterns at the ocean floor and strung capillary tubes throughout the city. Since then, every breath had been a ledger entry. The lift halted at Lyra's destination, the word vault, a library carved into a former drilling silo. Rows of crystalline panes held etched scripts dating back to the Exodus. Some contained speeches never spoken aloud. Their authors could not afford to voice them. Others recorded the last words of people who let themselves suffocate for love, grief, or justice. Entire philosophies survived only as incised silence. Master Sagan floated by the entrance, draped in plum-colored pressure robes. The old scholar rarely spoke. He valued his hoard of air the way jewelers caress gems. With a stylus of unicorn coral, he signed, "Late." Lyra offered the slightest audible whisper, "Apologies," and felt the sting of loss in her chest as the bubble escaped. Sagan eyed her gauge, then unhooked a half-full flask from his belt and connected it to hers, A steady hiss infused her reserve. The generosity startled her. Air was not given lightly. She raised her brows. Repayment? He scribbled. Your task today earns it. Translation of the Orphic log, henceforth sealed. Lyra's pulse quickened. The Orphic log was a relic salvaged from Primus, the very first inverted rig, long abandoned and rumored haunted by vacuum pockets. Sagan led her to a sealed chamber. Inside hovered a black box carved from pressurized obsidian. Intricate valves protruded from its surface like barnacles. A faint tick echoed within. This journal? Sagan said, spinning 4 costly syllables. Predates prices. Lyra drew closer. On the lid bloomed faint etchings. Glyphs shaped like lungs, tides, and split suns. She traced a line with a gloved finger. It shimmered as though alive. Sagan signed, Decode. But guard breath. He left, footsteps barely scattering silt. Lyra unwound her recording slate and stylus. The log script was archaic but familiar. She had studied the protoglyphs of pre-Exodus engineers. Yet these symbols curved as if drawn by someone writing in darkness, guiding the stylus by touch. She began to transcribe, each stroke translating centuries. Day 1. We refashion the rig, capsize it to cradle the deep. Air bleeds outward too fast. Engineers ration speech. Panic whispers through tubes. We who built the fossil empire now bargain with breath. Day 12. Found natural cavern beneath sub-basement. Holds a vast reservoir, air trapped by geologic folds. Could supply thousands indefinitely. Seal it. Announce nothing. Scarcity maintains order. Lyra froze. A hidden cavern of free air? The record continued. Day 30. Some demand access. Council refuses. They impute holiness to the vacuum. Declare it sacrilege to siphon. We mint oxygen coins to pacify unrest. Day 71. I fear what we have created. An economy of lungs. If knowledge escapes, kingdoms will rise on lies. Lyra's hand trembled. She calculated silently. If a cavern truly existed beneath Primus, the monopoly on compressed air was an engineered fiction. Penumbra's centuries of suffocating silence, the deaths, the traded kisses measured in bubbles, all orchestrated to maintain power. Her stylus slowed when the lines became jagged, as though the author had etched in haste. Day 105. I descend tonight to unseal the cavern, release plenitude. Farewell. The journal ended there. Lyra sat back, exhaling a string of silver beads that drifted to the stone ceiling. She fought the urge to scream. Sagan re-entered. She concealed the final lines with her forearm. He signed, Progress? She responded with signs learned in childhood street slang, swift and subtle. Truth dangerous. Need counsel. Sagan's eyes sharpened. He backed away, signaled the corridor camera to sleep. Then he spoke aloud. A grave expense. Explain. Lyra whispered the gist. Each sentence left her dizzier. Sagan's flask gauge ticked downward. Hers hovered near empty. When she finished, Sagan parted his beard, revealing the intake valve scar on his throat, a sign of old suffocation. If the council knows, he breathed, they'll silence you, literally. I have to tell people, she rasped. Words alone won't free us, he replied. They'd deplete you before you convinced anyone. He turned, rummaged through drawers, and produced a polished shell the size of Lyra's palm. A resonator. Amplifies voice across rigs. She shook her head. That would cost every breath we own, he said with finality. But knowledge unattended is a corpse. Before she could object, movement flickered at the entrance. A lean figure slipped inside, closing the hatch behind him. He wore the gray armband of waste sluice laborers, but his eyes blazed with clandestine purpose. He raised both hands in a greeting, known among the Whisperers, an underground collective rumored to sabotage air hoses in protest of rationing. Lyra had grown up hearing their name hissed like a threat. The newcomer signed, "Heard you discovered proof. We can help." Sagan stiffened. "How did you breach?" "Leaks everywhere," the man said aloud, spending lavishly. He tossed a pouch to the floor. It jingled like rainfall, full flasks. Donated by those tired of staying mute. Lyra studied him. His shorn hair floated around his temples like black kelp. He looked scarcely older than her 20 years, yet he carried the brittle calm of desperation. "I'm Kai," he said. Sagan glanced at Lyra. "Your call." She inhaled a frugal sip. "What do you plan?" Kai signed swiftly. "Tonight, sabotage official broadcast. Replace with truth. Reveal location of cavern. People will storm Primus." Sagan frowned. "Chaos kills. Needs structured release." Lyra considered the lines she had read. Scarcity maintains order. Their rulers had fashioned an empire of hush. Maybe chaos was the antidote. But a riot underwater, damage to rigs, could vent entire neighborhoods. She addressed Kai out loud. "We need evidence, not just words. Show the cavern live." Kai nodded. "My team found hidden shafts in Primus. We can guide you." Sagan offered the resonator shell to Lyra. "Your voice," he said, "paired with proof." Lyra felt fear coil in her abdomen like an eel. Yet her whole life she had tasted the cost of talk, bartered away laughter, kissed her mother's cheek in silence at burial, because buying breath for a farewell was impossible. Here lay a chance to unchain every tongue. She squared her shoulders. "I'm in." Night draped penumbra in bioluminescent hush. Lyra, Sagan, and Kai traversed shadowed maintenance ducts, bypassing sentry drones with Kai's forged codes. They surfaced within a transit sphere, linking penumbra to the derelict rig Primus, abandoned 3 kilometers north. Old magnetic rails still ran between the skeleton towers. Kai's allies had reactivated a pod. Lyra climbed inside the narrow capsule. Sagan followed, clutching his manuscript satchel. The door sealed, and compressed water jetted the pod along tracks, slicing through cobalt gloom. During the ride, Kai distributed auxiliary flasks, his own savings. Lyra clipped one beside her nearly depleted reserve. She watched the gauges. Enough for a speech maybe 3 minutes long. Enough for a revolution? The pod latched to Primus's outer dock with a clang. Dim hazard lights flickered. No official guard garrisoned the ruin. Rumor said the place was cursed with vacuum pockets that could inhale a diver whole. In reality, the council wanted nobody near. Kai led them through rusted corridors where barnacle craters modeled steel. They descended vertical ladders into the sub-basement. The deeper they went, the more the silence pressed, as though the ocean itself were holding its breath. Finally, they reached a bulkhead sealed by 5 concentric locks. Old engineering script labeled them Aurora. Lyra produced the Orphic log. Its cover pattern matched the lock glyphs. She fitted the journal against a panel. A hidden mechanism recognized the design. Gears groaned, and bolts withdrew. The door opened on darkness. Air surged out, a gust like desert wind. Instinctively they gulped, free, warm, unmetered. Lyra's ears popped, her gauge spiked, then blew past maximum. The valve expelled excess to avoid rupture. For a moment, the concept of cost vanished. They stepped inside. The cavern stretched beyond lamplight, a hollow geode in the crust of the seabed. Stalactites dripped condensation that popped into bubbles and drifted upward to gather beneath the cavern roof, forming a shimmering lake of air above their heads. A sunless sky trapped beneath stone. Kai laughed, an outrageous echoing shout. "Listen!" His voice bounced without penalty. Sagan removed his mask altogether. inhaled greedily, tears floating from his lashes. "So many books I can finally read aloud," he whispered. Lyra tilted her face to the unseen ceiling. She had dreamed of singing once, but sold the dream for tuition. Now she sang a single note, pure and long, and it cost nothing. The cavern rang with unfettered sound, but their mission was not wonder, it was witness. Kai activated a drone camera. It streamed to a transmitter his comrades had hidden within Penumbra's broadcast array. In less than a minute, the images would flood public displays across every rig. "Your speech," Kai prompted. Lyra lifted the resonator conch. Memory flickered. Her mother. Voiceless lullabies. Friends mouthing jokes. Laughter throttled by economics. She inhaled the free atmosphere and spoke. "Citizens of Penumbra, of Caligo, of all the rigs that keep you shackled to silence," she began, her voice resonant over channels meant for official decrees. "I am Lyra Aquilon, daughter of the ones who paid too much to speak my own name." She described the Orphic log, the governors who had discovered this cavern, and sealed it to fabricate scarcity. She showed the drone's wide-angle view of the boundless pocket, the meters on their flasks trembling past full. Words tumbled from her in torrents. Facts, outrage, promises. In households across the kingdom, screens flickered from council propaganda. To the face of a young woman stood an impossible plenty. Mothers clapped hands to mouths. Children asked questions aloud without fear for the first time. Dockworkers who had broken sentences into fragments their whole lives let curses rip in catharsis. Lyra ended with a summons. "Come. Come breathe. Come speak. The locks are open. Air is no one's property. Take back your voices." She lowered the shell. Silence swelled, this time rich with meaning, not debt. Kai's grin was fierce. Sagan, ever the historian, recorded his own brief edict. "Tell your stories now, whole, uncut." Sudden clamor rattled the bulkhead behind them. Red beams lanced across stone. The council guard, guided by sensors, tripped when the vault opened. Lyra's chest tightened. Kai signaled his crew. Explosive charges ringed the corridor, a fallback plan to seal the cavern before the guard could remonopolize it. But Penumbra's people were faster. Through the still broadcast lens, they watched crowds surge from lifts and tunnels, following the rail toward Primus. Tens, hundreds, then thousands, carrying empty canisters, lungs for once painfully insufficient. The council guard wavered, aware the tide could not be gassed or shot without sparking collapse of the entire infrastructure they ruled. Inside the cavern, Lyra and her allies braced. Bootfalls echoed. A squad stormed in, rifles fitted with projectile harpoons designed to pierce tank valves. The commander saw the cavern ceilings glimmer, inhaled reflexively, tasted unowned air. Confusion furrowed his brow. His men faltered. Lyra stepped forward. "Shoot, and you puncture the lie you defend. You breathe proof of it with every gasp." The commander's visor reflected her face, a scholar's eyes aflame. He lowered his weapon, wordless. Around him, guards removed helmets, exchanging bewildered glances. Soldiers who had rationed jokes till they forgot punchlines. Crowd voices boomed from the corridor, raucous, multicolored, unstoppable. Echoes of new freedom ricocheted down rust-eaten halls, laughter, arguments, songs remembered. The council's monopoly fractured not by violence, but by surplus. When a thing is everywhere, it cannot be priced. Kai pulled Lyra aside. "They'll need distribution valves, pressure regulators, tutorials." Sagan laughed, a dry bark unburdened by cost. "At last the word vault will teach in full sentences." In the weeks that followed, engineers, once tools of ration, converted cargo bladders into pipelines, funneling cavern air to every rig. Families gathered nightly to speak entire histories aloud for the first time in generations. Poets unleashed epics loitering half-written on slate. Even the ocean's own hush seemed to lighten, replaced by a murmur of collective narrative. The council was dismantled without a weapon fired. Its members were tried in public debates where endless air forbade excuses. They confessed beneath avalanches of testimony. Sentences were short. Exile to the uninhabited surface, where they could talk as much as they desired, yet have no one left to believe them. Lyra declined every office offered her. She returned to the word vault, now crowded with orators debating lexicon, children shattering old taboos with delighted shrieks. On quiet mornings, quiet by choice, not necessity, she read the Orphic log again, etching an addendum. Day 1 of open breath. Sagan entered, carrying a fresh flask out of habit, then laughed and set it aside unused. Old reflex, he said, savoring the syllables. The council archives surrendered their records. Would you catalog them? She nodded. But I don't intend to store them. She snapped her fingers. 2 apprentices wheeled in a glass amplifier, the size of a whale's heart. We're broadcasting the readings, all of them. Sagan beamed. As the hour bell rang, no one counted the bubbles anymore. Its 12 notes rose, unmeasured, mingling with 1,000,000 unpriced breaths. And Penumbra, forged in the crucible of silence, became the loudest kingdom beneath the sea.